Hello and welcome to class time. So today we are still focusing on paper 1. This time we're looking at the error recognition activities. And this would include usage, 2 different types, as well as spelling. So here are our objectives for today. So you'll be analyzing given sentences. You'll identify errors where present in these sentences. And of course, we'll discuss responses for each of these sentences. So of course, it's time to test your knowledge. So remember we said error recognition. So we're starting with usage. And this is what you're likely to see for the instructions. Some of the following sentences are unacceptable because of inappropriate grammar, idiom, or vocabulary. No sentence contains more than one error. Select the sentence which is inappropriate and choose the corresponding letter. If the sentence is acceptable as it stands, choose D. So, it's important to note, there should never be more than one error in your sentence. So if you think you see more than one error, then perhaps there is something more that you need to look at to see which one really is the error and which one is a figment of your imagination. And of course, you also have the option where there is no error. And that is where it gets tricky, because there are times when there is no error, and for some strange reason, your mind refuses to accept that there is no error. So you have to be able to critically analyze each segment and eliminate them one by one. So let's start. So as the teacher continued his lesson, Tina began to lose all interest, imagining herself laying on her bed, relaxing. So your options: lose, imagining, laying. Which of those, if any, is incorrect? Is it L-O-S-E? Should it be L-O-O-S-E? Is imagining correct? Should it be a different verb tense, perhaps? Is laying correct? Is it incorrect? You have your answer ready? All right, you should by now. So the part of this sentence that is incorrect is C, laying. Miss, why is it wrong? Here is why it's wrong. It is a difference between when you use forms of lie as opposed to forms of lay. And we get them confused all the time. So don't feel discouraged. Do not despair. The best of us do it all the time. So it should be lying and not laying. Now, to help you to not make this mistake again, let's have a look at when to use lie and when to use lay. So, forms of lie. You use lie when you are going to express something that is in or assuming a horizontal position, meaning something lies somewhere. So you lie on the bed, you lie on the ground. So when you recline, when you assume a horizontal position, or when you are in that position, you are L-Y-I-N-G. And look at the different forms now. So you have lie, which is present. The past tense of that is lay, and this is where the confusion comes in many times. The past participle is L-A-I-N, laying. And then, of course, the progressive form is L-Y-I-N-G. Now, take a look at the other side. When do you use L-A-Y? L-A-Y is a transitive verb. And in this case, something has to lay something else down. The easiest way to remember this: chickens lay eggs. If you keep reminding yourself of that, it should help you. So you use lay when something puts something else down or places another object somewhere. And the forms it takes: L-A-Y, of course, is a present tense. And again, notice present tense of lay versus past tense of lie. So that is where the mix-up often happens. Then you have laid, laid again, and then you have laying being the progressive tense. So keep in mind, if nothing else, just remember, chickens lay eggs. Chickens are laying eggs. That way you won't forget which one to use when. All right, so let's move on. Our next sentence. We are not surprised that Othniel's opinions differ from the other students. All right, so you'll notice there is nothing wrong with this one. Everything there is A-OK. Our next sentence. Benji was not in no mood to continue the game and went off the field. Look carefully now. We have 3 options, including a no error option as well. So is it was? Is it not in no mood? Is it went off? Which of those, if any, is incorrect? Hope you have your answer by now. Think carefully. So is it that we have no error at all? Or is it that somewhere in there is something wrong? Yes, you're correct. There is something wrong. And what is wrong is B, not in no mood. Why is that wrong? Can you tell me? What is wrong with saying not in no mood? You have the use of a double negative. So you should not in English use 2 negatives together. So in order to express this correctly, you have to make a change to at least one word in there. So here's how you could correct it. You could say not in any mood, or you could say in no mood, or you could say not in the mood. But notice none of those use 2 negatives. So not and no should not go together. All right, let's look at the next sentence. If Tiffany were here, Jody Ann would have heard of the disaster. Look at that carefully. If Tiffany were here, Jody Ann would have heard of the disaster. Where is our error? Is there an error? Is it the were? Is it the would? Or is it off? Ready? Should be by now. And this is a common error actually. So C is where we have our error. You should not use that word there. So we have a diction error because the word off is not being used appropriately. So how would you correct this now? Jody Ann would what? Would have. So if Tiffany were here, Jody Ann would have heard of the disaster. Very good. All right, let's move on to the next one. Did the inclement weather during the last season affect Sharon's crop? So again, we have our 3 options. There is weather. Is that the correct weather? We have season. We're not talking about seasonings. We're talking about seasons. We have effect. Is there anything wrong with this sentence? And if so, where is the problem? What part of this sentence, if any, is incorrect? You should have your answer ready, and hopefully your answer was C, effect is incorrect. Again, it's a diction issue. You should not use effect in this context. So what should you use instead? What should you replace effect with to make this sentence correct? Very good. Affect. So did the inclement weather during the last season affect Sharon's crop? All right, let's move on to our next one. Cecilia and Roxana have promised to oversee the arrangements for the festivities. So you have promise, you have to, you have festivities. Is there anything wrong with this sentence? Look carefully. It might just be an issue where there's nothing wrong. It might be perfectly fine. And then again, you might have an issue in there. Do you know what your answer should be? You do? All right, let's look. Your answer should be A, have promise. What is wrong with saying have promise? It's the tense that you have used in the verb. So what should you correct it to? because you want to keep the meaning, but how do you correct this? So what you should have is have promised with the ed on the end, because you want to use a present perfect tense. And you form the present perfect tense by using the form of have. So if it had been one individual, you would have said has promised as opposed to have promised. So you'd use the part or had promised. And then, sorry, no, not had, has or have promised. And then you use the past participle form of the root verb. So you should have promised. So please remember, you do not use it without the D on the end. Our next sentence. Donnelly and Kasmina couldn't have done nothing about the continuous noise from the propeller. Do we have anything wrong with this sentence, or is it perfectly fine? Does it look perfectly fine to you? It might look perfectly fine. You found anything wrong with it? All right, so let's look. Is it perfectly fine, or is there something wrong with it? There is something wrong with it. And it is wrong at the point where you use the word nothing. Now, think carefully. What is wrong with using the word nothing right there? Couldn't have done nothing. Why can't you use the word nothing right there? Very good. Double negatives again. So you should not say couldn't have done nothing. What should you say instead? Very good. Anything. So couldn't have done anything. Again, you want a negative with a positive, not two negatives in the same phrase. All right, so let's move on to our next sentence. The debate coach asked Shernet and I to lead the team during yesterday's training session. The debate coach asked Shernet and I to lead the team during yesterday's training session. What's happening here? Is this fine? Is there anything wrong with it? Does it look fine? You sure? Absolutely sure? All right, let's see. It is not fine. There is something wrong with saying Shernet and I at that point in the sentence. What is wrong with saying the debate coach asked Shernet and I? Think about it carefully. So we need to know when to use a subject pronoun and when to use an object pronoun. Right here we have Shernet and I. I is a subject pronoun. You use I when I am the subject of the sentence. But right where you see it, am I the subject of the sentence? No, the subject of the sentence is the debate coach. So what do you need to put there instead? It should be Shernet and me. And here's a little trick for you to remember in these instances. Take out the other person's name and leave the pronoun alone. So if you read the sentence with just the pronoun, then you can actually know if it's right or wrong. So if you read the sentence without the Shernet and part, you would say, the debate coach asked I to lead the team during yesterday's training session. Now, unless you are replicating Rastafarian language, you wouldn't use I in that context. So you would have said, the debate coach asked me to lead the team. So whenever you are not sure if you're to use I or me, simply take out the other individual and leave just the pronoun. So when you read it with just the pronoun, it will make more sense to you. So the debate coach asked me. Therefore, it should be the debate coach asked Shernet and me. Very good. Next sentence. Alia had always told Karen she planned to marry to Rambo, but she jilted him and married Shane instead. So, look carefully at the different parts. To married, jilted, married. Are they all correct? Is it a no error situation here? Or do we have an error? Yes, no? All right, let's find out. We do have an error, and the error is with A, to married. What is wrong with that? Why can't you say to married? Alia had always told Karen she planned to married. What's wrong with saying to married? The verb, again, the tense of the verb in that phrase is incorrect. So you shouldn't say to married. What you should say is to get married, or you could even say to marry. So she told her she planned to marry, and you take off the to. But since that part of the sentence is not underlined, you have to read the sentence using the to anyway. So the only thing you can do to change it for it to be grammatical is to say to get married to Rambo. All right? So let's look at our next sentence. It is Jackie's opinion that of all the books on the syllabus, the poetry text is the more important. It is Jackie's opinion that of all the books on the syllabus, the poetry text is the more important. You see anything wrong? I hope you do, because there is something wrong. So is the problem with A? Is the problem with B? Or is the problem with C? Which one is it with? All right, let's see if you are correct. And the problem lies with C. So you cannot say more important in this sentence. Why can't you say more important? Well, if you look, of all the books. So if you're looking at all, you're not just comparing two things, you're comparing several things. So remember, when you do your adjectives, your positive and your comparative and your superlative. So if it were only two, then you would have said more. But because it's more than two, what you should have instead is, yes, you remember? Correct, most important. So once it's more than two, then you have to use most. All right, let's look at the next one. Sully enjoys watching movies, swimming, and to take part in basketball rallies throughout the country. The B has run away from the line, but we understand where the B is supposed to be. So, where is our problem? With enjoys, with to take part, or with throughout? Where is our problem area? Is there a problem area? Look carefully. Sully enjoys watching movies, swimming, and to take part in basketball rallies throughout the country. Found the problem yet? Is there a problem to find? All right, let's look. So the problem is with the runaway B, to take part. Why is it incorrect in this sentence to say to take part? Because there's nothing wrong with saying to take part in another sentence, but why is it wrong in this one? Look at the other phrases that came before. What does he enjoy doing? Watching movies, swimming. So what should be there instead of to take part? So our verb phrase again is incorrect. And if we're to correct it, we should say taking part. So he enjoys watching movies, swimming, and taking part. So you have to keep the verbs consistent. All right, very good. So let's move on to our next one. Lying on the grass, the ideas drifted through Jean-Marie's mind and she felt glad. Lying on the grass, the ideas drifted through Jean-Marie's mind and she felt glad. Is there anything wrong with that sentence? This is how many people write, so it's correct, right? Right? No, it's not right. And we're going to see why. There is something wrong with this sentence. And the error, it lies where? Can you tell me? Lies with A. No, I told you about lie and lay. Is that the problem we have with this right here? Should it be laying on the grass? No, lying on the grass, the correct form of the verb is being used, so it's not the lie or lay issue, but there is something wrong with starting the sentence by saying, lying on the grass, the ideas drifted through Jean-Marie's mind. Because who's lying on the grass, by the way? Is the ideas lying on the grass? We don't know. It's just hanging there. So it's what you call a dangling participle. It doesn't connect with anything directly. So we have no clue who is lying on the grass. We just have to guess who is lying on the grass. So you should not start your sentence like that. And it's a common error many people make. So to correct it, you would say, while she lay, or as she was lying. Remember now, the lay right there is a past tense of lie. So while she lay, meaning the past tense of lie. And as she was lying. So you could use one of those two to correct this first part of the sentence. All right, we're moving on nicely. Let's go to our next sentence. Whose handbag is this? Asked LaShoy. Whose handbag is this? Do we have anything wrong with this sentence, or is it perfectly fine as it is? Look carefully. Is there anything wrong with this? Whose handbag is this? Are you sure? Are you absolutely certain that there's something wrong? You are correct if you said something is wrong. Where is the issue? Tell me. All right. If you said the issue lies with A, then you are a superstar. Now, when you see WHO apostrophe S, what does that mean? It really means who is. And you need to remember that an apostrophe signifies most of the time that something is missing. So if you read this as who is every time you see it, then you won't make the mistake of writing this when you don't mean who is. So we have a diction problem because there is a word that is pronounced whose, but this is not how you write it. This is how you write it. W-H-O-S-E. So when you're talking about ownership, even though, yes, sometimes the apostrophe is used to signify possession and ownership, in this particular case, it is not being used to do that. It is being used to show that something has been omitted. So when you say who is, then you will understand that. It shouldn't be there. What you should write instead, W-H-O-S-E, whose. All right, our next sentence. Neither Glenica nor Kimiko were determined to resume work if the protest continued. Interesting sentence. So neither Glenica nor Kimiko were determined to resume work if the protest continued. Do we have any error? Look very carefully. It's very easy to miss something if you're not looking carefully. And if you say there is an error, you are correct. Now to figure out where the error is. All right, so let's find out. The error lies with B, the use of were. And we're not supposed to use were when we have two singular subjects joined by the word nor. Because what should happen is the one closer to the verb controls the verb. And closer to the verb is a singular subject. So what you should have is a case where you say, neither Glenica nor Kimiko was determined. And you have to keep reminding yourself of this because it is very easy for you to say, but I'm seeing two names. You are not treating the two names as if they are two separate individuals. All right? So keep that in mind. You are treating them as one and one, not a combined total of two. So now we're going to look at error recognition in the form of spelling. So all our champion spellers, get ready. So here are the instructions you're likely to see on the paper. In the following sentences, one of the underlined words may be misspelt. Choose from the three options A, B, or C, the word that is misspelt. If no word is misspelt, choose option D. So remember now, three words will be underlined. You're looking at which of the three is possibly spelled incorrectly. But if none of them is spelled incorrectly, then you choose D. All right, so let's go. First sentence. I want an occupation which will keep me busily engaged and still give me time for leisure pursuits. Now look at those three words that are underlined. We have occupation, we have engaged, and we have leisure. Are they all correct? Yes, no, undecided. Think about it, look carefully. All right, by now you should know which one is incorrect, if any. So let's see. A is incorrect. Occupation is not spelled like this. How do we spell it? So we spell it with 2 C's. So that's where the error was. It had 1 C here when it should have had 2. All right, let's look at our next sentence and possible spelling errors. Disciplinary action will be taken against those delinquents who have rebelled. So here are our words now. We have disciplinary, we have delinquents, and we have rebelled. Are all 3 spelt correctly? Is any one of them spelt incorrectly? Look closely now. Ready with your answer? Let's check. In this case, fortunately, they're all spelt correctly. We don't see this very often, but it does happen every once in a while. So let's move on to the next sentence. When the bank reopens, all employees will receive their checks without delay. So we're looking at receive, we're looking at checks, and we're looking at delay. Now look carefully at each of those words. Receive, checks, delay. Look closely. Do you see anywhere where there is a letter out of place maybe? Maybe letters are in the wrong place. So all the letters are there but in the wrong order. Extra letters where they don't belong. Missing letters. Anything like that going on in there? Yes, we do have a spelling error in this one. Where is it though? Is it receive? Receive. Is it checks? Is it delay? Let's look. So the issue is with checks. Checks is spelled wrong. How do we spell it? What is wrong with it? All right, very good. So there is only 1 C in checks, and that's at the beginning of the word. So there is no C before the Q. So very good if you picked up on that one. So let's see the next sentence. The astute businessman carried out a feasibility survey before signing the contract with his foreign investors. So again, look at astute, look at feasibility, look at foreign. Some words are very tricky, you know. When you write them down, somehow they always look like you spelt them wrong, even if you spelt them right. And then some words look like you spelt them right when you actually spelt them wrong. So is any word here incorrectly spelt? And if so, how would you correct it? All right, you have your answer ready? All right, let's check. None of the words. They're all correct. Shame on you if you thought they were spelt incorrectly. All right, so let's move on to the next one. The teacher was embarrassed by the brazen attitude of the student who deliberately disturbed the class. And yes, we feel embarrassed sometimes as well as angry. All right, so look at embarrassed, look at attitude, look at deliberately. Is there any error with any of these words? Is embarrassed spelled right? Attitude spelled right? Deliberately spelled right? Are they all correct? Or is there somewhere in there hiding a spelling error? All right, let's look. So embarrassed is spelled incorrectly. How do we correct the spelling for embarrassed? Did we leave off something or did we have something extra? In this case, we left off an R, so we needed 2 R's. So we needed a double R and a double S. All right, let's look at the other sentence. The residents demanded that appropriate action be taken against the police for violating their rights. So, where is our error? Do we have an error? So look at A, residents. Look at B, appropriate. Look at C, violating. Are they all correct? Is there an incorrect one? All right, let's have a look. So A is incorrect. How do you correct the spelling for that word? The residents demanded that appropriate action be taken against the police for violating their rights. What should be there instead of what we have right now? So what should be there is an E where we have an A. So it's residents with an E, not an A. All right, let's look at our next sentence. This is an auspicious occasion, and we must appreciate the fact that we are invited to it. So we're looking at auspicious, we're looking at occasion, we're looking at appreciate. Now look carefully at how each of those words is spelled. And remember now, for the spelling section, you really have to take your time and look at the words carefully, because your eyes might show you the right spelling when the wrong one is on the paper. So look carefully. Which of these words is not spelled the way it's supposed to be spelled? Have you found it yet? Hope you have. Let's see if you're right. So B, occasion, is not spelled how it's supposed to be spelled. So how is it supposed to be spelled? What's wrong with this? Is there one problem or is there more than one problem? Let's find out if you're right. So we should have 2 C's and only 1 S. So remember, double C, single S. Try and remember that. All right, so let's look at our next sentence. Each farmer was allotted separate plots to cultivate by the government. Each farmer was allotted separate plots to cultivate by the government. So you're looking at allotted, separate, and government. Sometimes these words can be a little tricky, So you have to really, really know how the word is spelled. So, are they all correct? Or is there a little secret agent in there that shouldn't be there? Found it? You know your answer? All right, let's look. So allotted is spelled incorrectly. How do you spell allotted? Think about it. How do you spell allotted? This is how you spell allotted. 2 L's and 2 T's. So when it's allotted, you double the T. All right, so I hope you got that right. Let's move on to our next one. The Environmental Authority issued warnings for polluting water courses. So we're looking at environmental, we're looking at authority, and we're looking at polluting. Environmental, authority, and polluting. Look carefully. Do you see anything amiss? Do you see anything that shouldn't be there? Or is there anything missing that should be there? All right, so by now you should know if your answer is A, B, C, or D, no error. So let's see if you're correct. So if you chose B, you are correct in showing the incorrect one. So authority is not spelled the way it should. And we correct it by taking out the second U. So you only have one U, A-U, and no more U's in there. So I hope you got that one right. So let's look at our next sentence now. Disciplinary action must be taken against public officers for breach of their code of ethics. So we're looking at disciplinary, we're looking at officers, and we're looking at breach. Now look carefully at those 3 words. Are they all correct? Is there missing? Anything missing? Is there anything extra? So do we have an error with A, an error with B, an error with C, or no error at all? All right, let's find out if you are correct. I hope you're right. And you would be right if you said that there's something wrong with officers, B. Now, since you identified that there's something wrong with officers, how do you correct it? What should you say instead? How should you spell it instead of how it's spelled there? All right. You are correct if you said it needed an extra F. So there are 2 Fs in officers, not just 1. So we had a letter missing from it. All right, so I hope you're getting most of these right, And clap yourself if you're getting most of these right. But if you haven't been getting as many right, do not feel discouraged. It's a learning process. So at least now you know which words you need to learn. All right? So let's look at the next sentence. The committee recommended that efficiency be improved at the company. Again, some very tricky words. So look carefully at committee. Look carefully at recommended. Look carefully at efficiency. Are they wrong in any way? Is there an error hiding in there? Do we have any extra letters? Missing letters? Letters in the wrong place? Or is it that all 3 are perfectly fine as is? Oh my word. All right. Hope you have a choice by now, and let's see if your choice is right. And your choice is right if you said that they were right. Each of those is spelled correctly. So clap yourself if you realize that there was nothing wrong with any of them, even though these words are very tricky. So if you thought one was spelled wrong, no shame on you. They're very tricky to spell. All right, let's look at the next sentence. Caribbean governments must be clear in their minds about improvements to their tourist attractions. So we're looking at governments, we're looking at improvements, and we're looking at attractions. So let's play that little theme song in our mind. Da, na, 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 na. Which of these is wrong? Or do we have another case where none of these is wrong? I hope you have a choice by now. You have 4 choices, A, B, C, or D. And if your answer is A, then your answer is correct. So governments is spelled incorrectly. Now, the next part. If you said it was spelled incorrectly, what is incorrect about it? So let's look. We left off an N between the R and the M. So it is spelled governments, even though you don't really emphasize the sound of the N in there. So you really do say governments, but the N is in there, hiding, is silent. All right, so let's look at our next sentence. An anthem is a hymn or song which expresses loyalty or patriotism to one's country. So we're looking at anthem, we're looking at expressives, and we're looking at patriotism. Again, look closely. Do we have a no error situation here? Do we have any letters that are in the word that shouldn't be in the word? Do we have any letters in the wrong place in the word? So maybe the 2 letters should be switched around. Do we have any letters that are missing entirely in any of these words? So look at anthem, look at expresses. Expresses is giving me a funny look, Look at patriotism. Which of these has a problem? Or are they all fine? You have your answer, so let's check it. So the word that may have the problem or no problem at all. So patriotism is the word that we have an issue with. What is wrong with patriotism? What's missing, or what should be in there, or what extra letters does it have? Let's check. So notice now, in the one that is underlined, we only have 1 I, whereas in the actual spelling you have 2 I's. You have 1 after the R and you have 1 after the T. So it should be, before the S, because there's more than 1 T. So it should be patriotism. So just keep that in mind. Patriotism. So keep that in mind at all times. And those vowels, sometimes the vowels are the ones that cause all the problems. All right, so let's look at our next sentence, which is, what are the physical, mental, and social benefits that the plan provides? What are the physical, mental, and social benefits that the plan provides? So we're looking at physical, we're looking at social, and we're looking at benefits. Is this a no error situation? We've been lucky before to have no error sentences, you know. Is this another one? Is physical incorrect? Is social incorrect? Is that how you really spell social? Why it's pronounced social and you don't have any SH in there? Is benefits spelled correctly? All right, by now you should have an answer. So let's check it. So the word that is not spelled correctly is benefits. How should we spell benefits? So what we should have is B-E-N-E, not I. B-E-N-E, benefits. Very good. So now let's keep going. We're on a roll, you know. You're doing well. The young wish to proclaim their knowledge and intelligence before the eyes of an adult. Keywords now: proclaim, knowledge, intelligence. Look at those words carefully. Are they all spelt the way they ought to be spelt? So if you look in your dictionary, be it electronic or hard copy, are you going to see these words just the way they are on your screen? All right, double check, you know. It's good to guess at first, but always verify. Guess and verify after. So, proclaim, knowledge, intelligence. Ready to look? Check your answers. So C is not spelled the way it ought to be spelled. So how do we correct it? Where is the error in there? Is it in the first part, in the middle, or at the end? At the end. So it should not end with NTS. It should end with NCE, intelligence, not intelligence. And that is so difficult to pronounce anyway. So one more. The amount of water vapor in the air depends on the temperature. The amount of water vapor in the air depends on the temperature. So the science students will understand this very well. So we're looking at amount. We're looking at vapor. We're looking at temperature. All right. Yes, yes. What is going on here? Amount, vapor, temperature. We sing about temperature all the time. And temperature is where the answer lies. It's spelled incorrectly. And instead of how it is up there, which I'm sure some of you are saying, but it's so it pronounced. Yes, but it's not so it's spelled. Hush. So we need to insert an A in there. So it's temperature. But you still pronounce it as temperature. Now we're going to look at a different type of error recognition, which is still called usage, but it's usage of a different nature. So here are the instructions you're likely to see. Some of the following sentences are unacceptable because they contain one of four kinds of error. No sentence contains more than one error. Some sentences are acceptable as they stand. Select the letter that corresponds with what best describes each sentence. Now this one is very tricky, so pay close attention. So our sentence is, the army retreated back to the hills in order to prolong the sporadic shooting in the area. And your options are A, if the sentence is too wordy, repetitive, or contains redundancies. B, if the sentence contains cliches or misused metaphors. C, if the sentence is incorrect grammatically or faulty in diction. And D, if it is acceptable as is. So look at your sentence. The army retreated back to the hills in order to prolong the sporadic shooting in the area. What type of error, if any, is in this sentence? What do you think is wrong with it? Is anything wrong with it? It's fine, don't it? It look all right? Yes? You're sure though? You're absolutely sure it look all right? Let's double check. So the part that is highlighted, retreated back. What is wrong with saying retreated back? What kind of error is that, class? Talk to me. Yes, you're right. So it is redundant because if you retreat, you're already moving back. So you don't need to put back with it again. You can't retreat forward or sideways. So once you're retreating, you're already moving back. All right, so keep that in mind. Same thing of a reverse back to. Yes. Our next sentence. They journeyed they journeyed on the sea of hope and landed on the summit of success. They journeyed on the sea of hope and landed on the summit of success. Do we have anything wrong with this sentence? Or is there something wrong, but you're not quite sure what's wrong with it? Look at it carefully. Journeyed on the sea of hope and landed on the summit of success. Interesting, isn't it? All right, so I hope you at least made an attempt at this one. So let's find out if your attempt is fruitful. So the highlighted sections now, the sea of hope, the summit of success. What is off about those two expressions being used together? Something is off, and this is what is off. The sentence contains, well, in this case, it's not a cliche. You have misused metaphors because you have the sea of hope and then the summit of success. You associate a summit with what? A hill or a mountain. So how you move from the sea and land on the mountain? What kind of interesting land formations you have in your little geographical location that you can journey on the sea and land on a mountain? All right, so remember, don't misuse your metaphors. Next sentence. Irregardless of the fact that the route was blocked, he still tried to go home. Irregardless of the fact that the route was blocked, he still tried to get home. All right, this one. This one is going to be puzzling because this one, I feel that you feel nothing is wrong with it. And I feel that you feel that you are wrong. Something is wrong with it, but what? Where is the error? And then what type of error is it? If you at least can find the error, you're halfway there. So at least if you found it, good. So let's see. The error is with irregardless. What is wrong with irregardless? What kind of error is that showing us? Let's check. So, grammatically, no word exists named irregardless. Irregardless is not a word. So please strike it from your memories. Cast it into the sea of forgetfulness. Never let it issue forth from your pen or your lips ever again after today. What you should say is regardless. That is the actual word. All right, so let's look at the next sentence. It was the general consensus of opinion that the meeting had been a productive one. It was the general consensus of opinion that the meeting had been a productive one. All right, chew on that a little bit. Is there an error? Where is it? And after you found where it is, what is it? Or are we lucky enough to say that, no, son, nothing wrong, we're good? Are we good to go? Can we shout hooray? If you're shouting hooray, no, I'm going to caution you. Don't cheer too early. So there is something wrong, and let's find out what it is. So, general consensus of opinion. What is wrong with saying general consensus of opinion? There's something very wrong with saying that. And this is what it is. It is also very redundant and a little wordy too. Once there is a consensus, you don't even have to necessarily say general consensus. Once there is a consensus, that means people have agreed. So their opinions have aligned. And it's all of them, because once you have a consensus, it's everybody, and everybody shares the same opinion. So you don't need to include general, and you don't need to include of opinion. So you can say it was the consensus, and that is fine, as it is, no problem. So please remember to keep your redundancies, I wouldn't even say to a minimum, eliminate them from your lives. They serve no purpose other than to frustrate you and frustrate others.